Welcome to this session with Kiran Manral. We are today going to be talking about her latest book, Rising 2.0. But before that, I would like to share a bit about Kiran's journey as a writer. So, Kiran Manral published her first book, The Reluctant Detective, in 2011. She has published a total of 15 books across genres since then. Her books include romance and chick lit with Once Upon a Crush, All Aboard, Saving Maya, comic mystery with The Kitty Party Murder, horror with The Face at the Window, and more things in Heaven and Earth, psychological thriller with Missing, Presumed Dead, sci-fi with All Those Who Wander, and non-fiction with Karmic Kids, A Boy's Guide to Growing Up, True Love Stories, 13 Steps to Bloody Good Parenting, Raising Children with Hope and Wonder in Times of a Pandemic and Climate Change, Rising, 30 Women Who Changed India, and the latest Rising 2.0, 20 More Women Who Changed India. Her short stories have been published on Juggernaut in magazines like Verve and Cosmopolitan and have been a part of anthologies like Chicken Soup for the Soul, Have a Safe Journey, Boo, and the Best Asian Speculative Fiction, City of Screams, the Hatchet Book of Indian Detective Fiction. Her articles and columns have appeared in the Times of India, Tehelka, DNA, Condé Nast Traveler, The Asian Age, iDiva, People, Sakal Times, and many more. She's also a podcaster, hosting Chasing Creativity and co-hosting Not Your Auntie, two popular podcasts available across all audio platforms. She was previously a journalist working with the Dadal Street Journal, the Times of India, the India Today Group, a qualitative market researcher and a trend spotter, and India led with Gartner Iconoculture USA. She's spoken at most of the major literary festivals in India, at educational institutions like IIMA, IIT Bhubaneswar, IIT Roorkee, MET Mumbai, to name a few, and other events. Her current book is actually very interesting. The book Rising 2.0 brings 20 stories which account of the resilience and brilliance of iconic Indian women who rose to be trailblazers and trendsetters against all odds. Even in this day and age, when conversations about women empowerment and equality are at the forefront, we are only scratching the surface when it comes to knowledge about women's contribution. Whether it's in the field of science, defense, law, or literature, the contributions of women have been undermined extensively. With Rising 2.0, Kiran Manral aims to continue the work of acknowledging the contribution of women that had started with her previous book, Rising, 30 Women Who Changed India. Welcome, Kiran. Thank you so much for being with us here for this discussion. So the first question.
Thank you for inviting me, Namrata. It's always an honor to be in conversation with you.
Sure. Thank you. So the first question that we have for you today is, considering the theme of this year, which is language and erasure at Ananke Women in Literature Festival, how does your book address the erasure of women's stories from historical narratives? And what role do you see it playing in preserving and amplifying these voices for future generations?
That's a very, very deep question, Namrata, and I don't know if I have an answer sufficient enough for that. When I took up Rising, my aim was not to write the stories of women who had already been spoken about. So, of course, you need those names to draw in the reader. You know, there's a certain familiarity. If they've heard certain names and they want to pick up a book. So I have a few of those, but those were decoys, to be honest. My main aim was to get the names in whom nobody had heard of, you know, people, women who had done astounding things with their lives. Yeah. But maybe, you know, in this day of age and day of marketing and press publicity, they have not got enough PR. So they're not there in our faces all the time. And that's what I did with Rising 1, the first book. And with this book also, I did the same. I have few names who are pretty well known and names who aren't known at all. Some names who we may not have even heard of.
Right.
And I think it is so essential to keep talking about women who have done, you know, it may not sound like much, but if you think of the circumstances from which they come and how they have struggled to do what they have, or what decisions they have taken to get where they are. If you take an M.S. Subbulakshmi, for instance, she came from a Devdasi family, but she took decisions that would have been very controversial at that time. I'm sure everybody admires her, knows about her music, her voice, her singing. She's an icon of her times. But very few might know, except for, theorists and the people who follow the Carnatic music, that she at a very young age took the decision to run away from home to, go and to find her career and not to get married to or to be settled with the man her mother wanted her to settle with. That amount of courage for a young girl, or Sonal Mansingh, when her parents said, like, okay, you either get married or you continue studies, you can't do dance, she just upped and she took a train and went off to Bangalore on her own, a young 17-year-old or 18-year-old. These decisions are so courageous. I think I wanted to put this made not just for women, but also for young girls who are reading it. That you find your passion, you follow your passion, and the universe will open doors for you. It'll be a struggle, but see what these women have done. Maybe you can also do it.
Right. That's very interesting, and that's what I wanted to understand. Why? How did you ensure inclusivity and representation in your selection process for this 20 profiles that you've chosen for this book, and especially considering factors like ethnicity, region, and socioeconomic status? Because all this matters a lot when we talk about women or when we talk about inspiring stories.
So, well, originally there were 30 women. But the manuscript was too heavy, so we sort of made it Rising 2.0 and we cut down 10 women. And there will be, oh, just a minute.
Yeah,
Something has happened. Yeah, okay. So what I did try, I mean, even the ones who were not in the book, maybe because they were taken out, because maybe there's enough and more written about them and enough is known about them, or whatever. But here I did try to make sure that I had Tulsi Gowda, who comes from a tribal community, Iram Sharmila, who is from the Northeast, Duti Chand, who is from the LGBTQA, Begum Akhtar, who is from the minority community and who's also a Tawaya. So I tried to have a mix of as many diverse voices as possible. I'm sure it is not complete. I'm sure there will be gaps, but one did one's best, and hopefully if there are any gaps, I can rectify it in future works of mine. But yeah, across socioeconomic communities, I have somebody who was born into a very privileged family, somebody who came from an Adivasi family. So there is a diversity, of backgrounds as well. You have a Kamla Das who was born into a very, very privileged family. You have a Tulsi Gowda who came from a tribal family. So you have that kind of, I did try to have that spread that, okay, each of them has their own challenges. You may think that somebody comes from a privileged section of society, but she also faces certain challenges that you may not think about. And the one who comes from a marginalized or a disempowered or a financially not very strong background, there are a completely different set of challenges. And each one's struggle is unique and each one's journey is unique. And we just need to learn from them and admire their journeys.
Very true. Very truly said. So, as a writer, balancing factual accuracy with storytelling can be very challenging, especially when you're writing nonfiction. So, how did you navigate this balance while crafting compelling narratives that also stay true to the lives of these women that are featured in your book?
The first thing, Namrata, is to approach their lives with complete respect, because their stories are not mine to tell. Their stories are their own. So I put the facts first. I do not bring my judgment into any decisions that they might have taken. I just present the facts with empathy, with a sense of me being a woman and thinking, what would I have done in their shoes? And I have, there is no attempt to embellish the facts at all. There is no, as you know, you've read my other writing. I'm a very vivid and descriptive writer. I mean, I love to go into atmospherics. I love to go into mood, but Rising has none of that. Rising is just spread, this is facts. This is what happens. And I have a very small canvas. I have 2,000, 3,000 words per person. How do you compress such rich lives into so many words? And you want to pack in so much. So the storytelling is very factual, very matter of fact, very empathetic, very respectful, and there is absolutely no judgment, and there is absolutely no. I have tried to give my voice out of it as an author. So I don't intrude into the storytelling at all. It's for the reader to just know their story.
Right. So, as you just highlighted, and as I have also observed from this book, is that each woman featured in the book has a very unique story of resilience and achievement. So, how did you approach narrating the stories, and what aspects of their life did you aim to highlight? Like, how did you choose which one to keep, which one to not talk about, which aspect? Was there a uniform thread that you decided?
I think for the sports people, for somebody like Mithali Daj or the politicians, it was always the milestones in their lives.
Mhm.
This happened first, they trained here, then this happened, and this is what they won, and these are the records they set. And so that was how it went about. And for the others, it was more of the challenges that they came up against and how they surmounted those challenges and went on to do more with their lives. Like for somebody like Sindhu Tai Sakkal,
Mhm.
it is that being thrown out of your house when you're 9 months pregnant and about to deliver and delivering in a stable, cutting the placenta, the umbilical cord with a stone, and having nowhere to go with a newborn and staying in a graveyard so that that men don't prey upon you, and then becoming a mother of hundreds of orphans. I mean, look at that story.
Mhm.
Any other woman in her place would have probably killed herself. And she herself says, I thought about dying so many times, but something kept me alive. And she kept taking, nurturing. Whenever she came across some orphan somewhere, some abandoned child, she would take that child in her care when she had nothing for herself. So that grit, that resilience, that determination to go on in each of these stories is something that really, or you take uh, somebody like, whom should I, Begum Akhtar, for instance. She came from, her parents weren't together. She had a childhood that was a little traumatic. She had a life that was controversial, but yet she surmounted it all because of her talent, and she just continued. So the glory of the talent, but the determination to put that talent out. A lot of people are talented, but they don't put it out.
Yeah.
But to challenge yourself and to go against whatever is constricting you and confining you, and to take that out into the world, I think that's what I try to highlight and try to bring out in most of these stories.
Yeah, I think it's very inspiring when you look at that stories. There is always such amounts of resilience that can be drawn from each of their stories. So, as the author of both this part one and part two of Rising, what learnings did you gain from research and writing about this remarkable women, and how did it influence your own perspective?
uh it is very humbling to read the stories. It is so humbling. You feel, what have I done with my life? Look at what these women have done. There's a Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay who was widowed but went on to, become the revivalist of Indian handlooms and
Yes.
textiles. And I mean, she became an iconic woman of her time. That in that age, if you were a widow, life was as good as over.
Yeah. True.
So I mean, look at that. Then you look at Captain Lakshmi Sehgal. She became a doctor. She had a divorce. She separated from her husband, not a divorce. In that time, pre-independence era, went off to Singapore alone as a young woman, then went into the armies to fight like armed combat on ground with the British and to lead a regiment. A woman who came from a very privileged family. I mean, they were like the elite of Chennai.
Yeah.
To go and to be fighting in battle in the jungles of Burma. Uh, the kind of strength that these women have has been very humbling for me. And it has been a lesson that, you know, we don't realize what we're capable of.
Right.
We keep on saying that I can't do this and I can't do that. Why not? Why are we limiting ourselves? I want this book is written primarily for girls, young girls in schools and colleges. I wanted to read it and say that, gosh, they could do this back then. Janki Amal could go to the US back then and study botany. And she could go and live in the US, the UK, during the time of the Second World War and become such a famous botanist. And we don't even know about her. I mean, if you say Janki Amal, most people would have a blank expression on their face, but she is the one who is sort of got us our sugar cane. So we can have our own sugar. We don't have to depend on imports. We don't know these people. So I want them to say, okay, botany, a woman was a botanist back then, and she was a world-renowned botanist. What are we talking about? We've had women who have like broken glass ceilings before we were even using the word glass ceiling.
Yeah.
So just go out there and do your thing.
You know, your statement actually reminds me of what Priyanka Chopra had said when Kamala Harris became the VP for America. She was like, at India, we've been doing it like way back. We had Indira Gandhi at a time when nobody had even thought of women entering politics. So it's time for the world to actually match up to us instead of we matching up to the West now. Your sentence
Absolutely.
actually makes me believe that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've had women doing that. We've had Indira Gandhi. Actually, we've had women prime ministers back then. We had Srimo Bandaranaike.
Yeah,
We had Golda Meir. So we've had women prime ministers and we've had Margaret Thatcher, of course.
of
So
course.
they've been there, but it's just like, they've been very poorly erased. Like all these strong women have been erased. And why do we have to keep reinventing the wheel all the time and saying that, these women were there? It's
Yeah,
not something new that's happening today.
true. So, a common theme across your nonfiction works that we talk about, say, Rising or the Part 2 Rising, is often touching upon social issues and women's empowerment. So, can you discuss the role of storytelling in raising awareness and advocating for change, particularly in the context of your nonfiction titles?
Storytelling is, I think, the easiest way to get a message across. If you're going to make it a very flat history lesson, then it might not appeal to everybody. But if you're telling somebody a story, somebody says, come, let me tell you a story, you're more eager to listen to it. Or if somebody says, this is what happened to me, you're more eager to know the story. So I think storytelling is very, it's compulsive listening. It's compulsive reading. It's something that should draw you in, should suck you in, and it shouldn't be like I hate to say it, but some of our storytelling, which is very popular and which is really sells a lot, is like a moral science lesson. I'm not going to name the authors, they're very popular. And they're multi-millionaires. But moral science lessons, I don't want to give moral science lessons. Everybody should be able to read something and be discerning enough to take away from their own. It shouldn't be spelled out, that, okay, you have to. Anyway, let me not get into that. But the story itself has to give you the sense of what direction you need to take in your life. It gives you a sense of purpose. It gives you some inspiration. It gives you an insight into what lives other than yours could be like. And I think that's so powerful when, we are living in an age where there's so much storytelling in fiction. There's so much storytelling on OTT platforms. There's so much of narratives that are invented and told to us, but the real stories are always so much more fascinating because sometimes there are things you couldn't even imagine that could happen to a person. And, why do we not know about them? Why do we not talk about them? We need to.
True. That's actually very true. So, as a mentor and advocate for women's rights, what advice would you give to aspiring writers, especially those interested in highlighting underrepresented voices and stories in their work?
Uh, Underrepresented voices and stories in their work. Um, there is a school of thought that is very valid that says that you need to come from a certain background to be able to write about people from that particular background. You cannot appropriate a culture, a people. You cannot write about them. And I have a slightly different take. It might be controversial. I say if you approach anything with appropriate research, enough empathy and respect, please tell the story because it doesn't matter. The stories need to get out. But approach everything with a lot of respect, a lot of non-judgmentalism, a lot of empathy, and have your research in place. Get your sources, get everything checked. do whatever checks and balances you need to do. I think everybody will respect your storytelling if you've done it from a place of empathy and respect. And that will show in how you tell the stories, right? It will show in the voice and the tone that you use and whatever. But if somebody is new to this, and if you feel, then I would say if you're unsure of that, then stick to what you're familiar with. Stick to what you know and what you're comfortable with, what you've grown up with, what you've seen around you. If you're not sure of bringing that level of empathy and objectivity and honesty to your work, because it is challenging, it is difficult. So you can always start with writing something that you know about and then moving out to different things and, branching out, and do it with as much honesty and respect that you can bring to the table. That's all.
Those are some very helpful tips. So, Kiran, last question. What are you next working on? You have always surprised us as a reader with different genres, with books that have just been like, I was not expecting this from Kiran. That's the reaction that usually, especially for me, someone who's seen all your books from the time that you made your debut. So, what genre are you next working on?
You'd like to guess? It's nothing that I've written before. It's not. It's not mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It's not mythology, and it's not romance. Romance I've written, but it's not mythology. It's dark fantasy.
Wow. Okay. See, I told you. Announce your title, and the first reaction is like, okay, we were not expecting this from.
So that's with the publisher. That's with Hachette. That should be out, I think, in August. We are on edits now.
Mm-hmm.
There's another book on women entrepreneurs. So that's another nonfiction that's been submitted now. You know how the process is. I suppose it'll take a year in the making before it comes out.
How do you decide about the genres, and do you just follow the calling of your heart or your muse, as they put it in writer's language, or is it that you really have like a list?
I wish I knew. I think Namrata, I think it shows also in the way I write that I have a very low boredom threshold. So I can't do the same thing over and over again. I have great respect for authors who can stick to the same genre and keep writing in the same space over and over. But I see a lot of women authors doing this. Chitra Banerjee, Devakruni, Manrit Sodhi Someshwar. We are all experimenting across genres.
Yeah.
We are all writing. Chitra is writing, biopic fiction. Jindan, she's writing independent. She's done mythology. Manjeet has done historical fiction. She's done chick lit. She's done funny books. So everybody, she's done thriller. So women are going across the genre. Men are sticking to, okay, this is my tried and tested, and I am sticking to this. I'm not venturing beyond this. Even Koral Das Gupta, if you see, she's doing those 5 Panch Kanyas, but she's done romance before. She's done humor before. So I think women authors in India are really pushing the envelope. Maybe that's a story idea for you. Really, really hard. And they're really, branching out into different things. And I think that's fun. I enjoy doing it because for the life of me, I can't keep writing anything except, the Reluctant Detective Kitty Party Murder Keemiya series. That's going on. Book 4 has been written and sent in. So, so that is something I love because that I can keep writing on. Because
so I can say as a reader, we also love surprises. We love that it's not getting repetitive. It's not the same character whose life we are seeing after like 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It's not getting that repetitive. So it's fun. So lastly, any tip for writers who want to switch genres, who are scared? How will the readers perceive, or how will the publishers perceive?
Why are you scared? I would say ask yourself the question first. Who are you writing for? Are you writing for the publisher? Are you writing for the reader? Then you shouldn't be writing. Then please hang up your boots and quit. If you're writing for yourself, you won't be scared because you'll be telling the stories you want to tell. And you wouldn't, it's not good marketing strategy and it's not good thing, but you are writing a story that comes from your heart. And then you won't be scared because you're writing it from a space of belonging with the story
True.
and being the story. So just write what you feel like it. And if it is a good book and if it is worth something, it will find its way on the shelves. It will find a publisher. And if it doesn't find a publisher, so many self-publishing options these days. Don't bother. Just write the truest story you want to write.
Yeah, that's a huge motivation. I'm sure a lot of authors who will hear this will be inspired to experiment, because that's one of the biggest things that I keep hearing from them, that I have written this book is successful, now I'm scared
To
of
shift.
switching.
Yeah, if you're scared of something, then you're not a creative person. Then you're a marketing person.
Yeah,
You're a
because
person who's marketing your product. You're not a creative person. You're not a writer. Then just forget it. Just call yourself a marketer and not a writer.
this is a topic for a discussion. Sometime we should definitely have a chat on. Thank you so much for this, Kiran. It was wonderful interacting with you. I'll be sharing all the links to this book in the description to this video, so you can go and grab a copy. You can also check her website for all the other works that Kiran has done and read her works. Leave a comment, leave a feedback. It always helps for all the authors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Namrata, and all the very best for the festival.
Thank you so much.